Good morning, students. Am I audible?
Good morning, ma'am. Yes, you're audible.
Okay, fine. Just a moment. Let me share my PPT again. Okay, so we finished last time the management of plant viral diseases, and today we are going to discuss about the management of human diseases, right? So quickly, just let's revise the management of plant diseases or plant viruses. So what are the basic principles to manage any plant viruses or any plant disease in general? Okay, yes, Manas.
Ma'am, so there's an integrated approach. So it includes mainly four activities, which
Mhm.
is exclusion, which is complete removal and killing of the infected plant, and then developing of plant resistance and chemical and cultural control.
Okay, fine, fine. Okay, good. So, my next question is that what is the plant resistance? What is plant resistance approach? Yes, anyone? देवांशी, अब आप लोग हाथ नहीं खड़ा करोगे तो मैं रैंडमली पूछूंगी. Yes, देवांशी.
If we can say, ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Ma'am, if we say in a general way, uh,
Mm-hmm.
of a plant, it is the case in which a plant is um,
Yes,
it is a
plant
self defense
resistance, right?
for itself, uh,
Yes.
that it can prevent itself from the diseases, like it can
Mm-hmm.
be genetic, for example, chemicals or proteins, and uh, adaptation, other type is adaptation,
Mm-hmm.
and chemically induced, like for example use of some responses, like which plant tissue
Mm-hmm.
provides.
Mm-hmm.
An example can be Actigard for plant
Mm-hmm.
protection.
Okay, fine. Okay, so who will tell me next now what are the cultural approaches for the management of the viral diseases or diseases in general, plant diseases, cultural approaches, cultural control methods. Not Devanshi now. Other students, please, other than Manaswini and Devanshi.
Ma'am, the cultural control methods include crop rotation,
Yes.
sanitation of tools,
Mm-hmm.
containers, equipments, etc., and
Mm-hmm.
alternate host eradication for pathogens and vectors, and nutrient management, soil treatment, uh,
Mm-hmm.
such as solarization, tillage, etc.
Okay, okay, fine, Aishi. So who will tell me what is soil solarization? What do we do in soil solarization? No? What is meristem tip culture method? No, Manaswini, not you. I know you are going to answer, but I want other students to answer. In all the classes, only few students answer, and Manaswini is consistent. I mean, one student जो तो हमेशा ही answer करती है, and few other students also. But let's get this from others. What is meristem tip culture? पता नहीं मैंने कितनी बार meristem tip culture पढ़ाया होगा, तब तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि I'm taking this class and my teachers who sit beside me, my neighboring teachers, उनको भी पता होगा meristem tip culture क्या है, मैंने इतनी बार पढ़ा लिया. Fine.
I mean, meristem culture, the apical region which is normally, it is free from the virus, so it is
Mhm.
its size, and
Mhm.
it has been grown in vitro tissue culture medium
Yeah, it is through the tissue culture.
in order
Yes.
to raise virus free from plants.
Yes, right. Yes. Okay. So another one important thing that I discussed was about cross protection. Who will tell me what is cross protection? Yes, Shakti.
Yes, ma'am. In cross protection, we infect the plant with mild strain so that it can be
Mhm.
protected from a severe strain.
Yeah, in cross protection, we use mild strain of a particular virus to prevent the infection from the severe viruses, and this has been used in citrus trichiza virus or a tobacco mosaic virus, a number of viruses. And see, when we talk about the exclusion, the indexing and certification program are very useful. Cultural practices, there are number of, and then we discussed about the heat therapy also, that thermotherapy is again being used for eliminating viruses. Then meristem tip culture and the chemotherapy also, chemical control is not available, but still there was some reports which says that fungicides, use of a fungicides, they reduces the virus induced symptoms, but as such no effect on the viruses. But the chemical control of the vector is possible. Then yes, elimination and control of insect vector is very important when we are talking about the plant viruses, especially because we know the plant viruses, they are transmitted by the vectors. Similarly, when we talk about the human diseases also, yes, is someone saying something? Nandini, yeah, you're saying something. Okay, so I was talking about the management of a plant viruses. So chemical control is not for the viruses, but yes, indirectly for the vectors. So vectors, if we can manage the vectors, we can manage the pathogen also, right? Then breeding for resistant and tolerant variety can also be one important method, which uses genetics and breeding approaches for the management. And cross protection, yes, I discussed it. It is a very old technique. It's not that it's very new technique, but now this technique has been revived again, and lot of people are again working on this technique, that how it is working. What is the reason that this cross protection takes place? Is this the RNAi technology, or is there some other reason for this particular technique? Then we also discussed that there is one more mechanism, which is a pathogen derived resistance, and this is also very successful in plant viruses. And there was a transgenic papaya which showed resistance against papaya ring spot virus, which was developed using this basic technology, and this was very successful when we talked about the management of a papaya ring spot virus in the field, right? So that was about the plant virus management, right? So today we are going to discuss about the management of a human viral diseases, right? So uh, when we the first thing when we talk about the human virus management, the most important is the vaccination, right? Vaccination, then again there are different types which are available, but the vaccination is the only sure shot method which is available for the management of the human viruses, right? So when we talk about viral diseases, they range from trivial infections to plagues that alter the course of history. So what does this mean? This means there are so many viruses which are causing diseases, and diseases could be, I mean, insignificant diseases which does not cause much losses or a much symptoms or a much mortality or a morbidity, to the diseases which can lead to the epidemics or pandemics, and people, number of people dying due to the diseases, right? In the we have seen, right, we discussed about the pandemics, we discussed about the epidemics which are actually being caused by the virus diseases, ranging from the Spanish flu to the coronavirus pandemic that we are facing right now, right? So because there are there are a number of viruses, there are a number of strains of one particular viruses which are available. So there are a lot of variations in the viruses and in their epidemiology and pathogenesis. So पैथोजेनेसिस इज हाउ वायरस इज इन्फेक्टिंग, राइट? पैथोजेनेसिस क्या है, कैसे इन्फेक्ट कर रहा है, व्हाट इज द कोर्स, किस तरह से वो, व्हाट इज द पैटर्न दैट इट इज पर्टिकुलरली फॉलोइंग, हाउ मच पैथोजेनिक वन organism or virus can be, right? Then epidemiology, so this is the new term here, that epidemiology. So when we talk about the epidemiology, we talk about the how various environmental factors also they affect the viruses, right? How pathogen is affected by a various climatic and environmental factors, and that is why we study the epidemiology of the pathogens or epidemiology of the viruses, so that once we understand the particular behavior of a particular virus in relation to the environment or a different host, we can definitely go for the management, or we can devise suitable management strategies also, right? So each virus, it presents its own set of problems. The most spectacular progress so far has involved vaccines. So that's why I was saying that many vaccines have been discovered for many pathogens, not only viral pathogen, bacterial pathogens also we have vaccines which are being discovered. So then vector control and sanitation. Since I told you there are arboviruses, or those viruses which are transmitted by the vectors or arthropod vectors, especially the viruses which are transmitted by the mosquitoes or ticks or other vectors, their control. So vector control can definitely reduce the transmission of the diseases. And sanitation means that some viral diseases are due to the unclean drinking water. Vector-borne diseases are due to the stagnant water lying which are the breeding ground for the mosquitoes. So if there will be a lot of mosquito breeding will be there, so definitely the mosquito-borne viruses will also be increased in that. So if we can use certain sanitation practices, and vector management can be done at a large level to eradicate at least the vector of the pathogen, then definitely the incidence of such viral diseases can be reduced to a certain level. Also, number of therapeutic antiviral agents are now available, including some for very serious infections such as human immune deficiency virus infection. So there's a heart therapy, so that I'll discuss in a separate lecture. In the next lecture, I'll try to discuss what is heart therapy about for HIV viruses. So yes, there's a therapy available for this particular virus, which combines the multiple drugs or antivirals in that treatment, and they are able to manage this particular pathogen. In addition, interferon alpha. So interferons are also these days being exploited for the management of a many interferons that I'll discuss in this lecture, right? So immunoprophylaxis is the first term that we use. So immunoprophylaxis against viral illnesses include the use of vaccines or antibody containing preparations to provide susceptible individual with immunologic protection against a specific disease. So this we know, right? In coronavirus, how we all got vaccinated on a mass scale, because we realized that the vaccine was the only method by which we can reduce the impact of this virus, or we can reduce at least the mortality which is being caused by the viruses, right? So this is immunoprophylaxis. So immunization against viral illnesses can be again a two type. It could be an active immunization or a passive. I'm sure in a basic immunology you're using these terms, right? So with active immunity means protection is achieved by stimulating the body's immune system to produce its own antibodies by immunization with the virus preparation. So that is called your active immunity. Passive immunity is provided when person is given antibodies to a disease rather than producing them through his his or her own immune system. So that is called a passive. We are providing a passive immunity, right? So there are again different types, like active prophylaxis is the vaccines, and then it is again a attenuated live viral vaccines, or it could be the killed viral vaccines, right? So most live vaccines, they contain viruses that have been attenuated by a lab manipulation. They have been changed. Certain genes have been removed which cause the infection or a diseases, right? So these attenuated viruses can infect and replicate in a recipient, and they can produce a protective immune response without causing the disease. Disease is not required to be caused, right? So live attenuated viral vaccines can often confer lifelong immunity after one immunization series. So they confer a lifelong immunity that particular disease, right? However, because live viruses can multiply in the body, so there are always certain possibilities, so maybe few percent or just maybe 1 to 2% possibility that they may revert back to a more pathogenic form. So this always remain there, that it could happen, right? So adequate lab and animal testing and extensive clinical studies must be performed to assess this possibility. So a lot of trials are being conducted, lot of studies are being done before these are being released into the market for the use. So in addition, new recombinant technologies, they facilitate direct alteration of a viral genetic structure, thus permitting scientists to produce attenuated viruses in which genetic regions likely to lead to pathogenic reversions or modified are being deleted. So totally delete those genetic regions which can cause a disease, and they can be used. So attenuated pathogens, they have a very rare potential to revert to a pathogenic form and cause disease in a vaccines, people who are vaccinated or their contacts. So example for this are very rare. So there are serious, in one example is in case of polio virus. So there are serious adverse events of vaccines, are vaccine associated paralytic poliomyelitis and disease causing vaccine derived polio virus, which is associated with the oral polio vaccine. So some cases have been reported in this using this vaccination. Examples are for such vaccines are tuberculosis, oral polio vaccines, measles, and for the rotavirus vaccines, they are prepared by this method. Then these are again the same. There's a chart showing the examples where BCG, this is a WHO recommended vaccines using this particular technology, and it is against rotavirus, yellow fever, measles, oral polio vaccine, and tuberculosis. Then we have a killed or inactivated viral vaccine. So killed vaccines, they contain either the whole virus particles, which are inactivated by chemical or a physical means, or some component of the virus. So it could be a full virus particle which is inactivated. Okay, am I audible now? My net was gone just for a second, I guess.
Ma'am, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine.
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
you're audible.
Okay, fine, thank you. So killed or inactivated viral vaccines they contain either the whole virus particle, which is inactivated by chemical or any other physical mean, or some component of the virus also. So completely inactivated viral vaccines cannot cause infection. These are safe that way, right? However, they do not generally produce lifelong immunity following one immunization series. So additional doses could be required for these kind of a vaccine. So in addition, because killed viruses, they do not multiply in the host, the inoculum itself must provide sufficiently large concentration of a viral antigens to induce the desired immune response in a people or who are being vaccinated by these kind of vaccines, right? Safety and stability, inactivated whole cell vaccines, they have a no risk of inducing the diseases that are given against, as they do not contain the live component. They are considered more stable than the live attenuated viral vaccines. These are the examples where these vaccines are being used. Pertussis and inactivated polio vaccines is also available, or these are being there are again then after reactions, these are the adverse reactions which are associated with inactivated whole cell vaccines. So in case of a pertussis could be the minor adverse reactions such as local redness, swelling, fever can be obtained. See, in case of the vaccines also, when we take vaccines, the doctors always say that it could be associated with a mild fever, or it could be associated with the swelling at the area where it is injected. So for that, proper precautions are being recommended, that you can take this thing for if there's a fever, you can take medicine for a fever, or if there's a pain, you can take a painkiller, right? Then there are recombinant produced antigens, right? So application of a recombinant DNA strategies to develop new vaccines is again performed if we can identify the some components which can elicit the production of a protective antibodies. So we can clone those kind of a components and express by expressing them in a certain suitable vector, and then gene encoding that protein and assembly of a complex in some cases. So this is again a recombinant DNA technology, can also be used for the generation of a development of some kind of a vaccine. So this approach had made possible a safe and effective recombinant vaccine against hepatitis B virus, which is being this vaccine is being generated using this technology, right? Then immune response to the vaccines. What kind of immune response we get? So vaccination, they evokes an antibody response, which is in turn a measure of the effectiveness of the vaccine in stimulating B lymphocytes. So antiviral antibodies, they are classified as IgA, IgM, IgG, and can be measured by various techniques. So some antibody categories such as IgA and IgM are normally more abundant in respiratory and in intestinal secretions, whereas others such as IgG, they are more abundant in the circulatory system. So vaccines, they also stimulate T lymphocytes, which leads to a cell-mediated responses that influence the protection. So antibody assays are now routine lab procedures, but then measuring the cellular immunity in vitro usually require the utilization of a complex lab techniques, which can be done by using some techniques. Then effectiveness is another very important concern with any kind of a vaccine, right? So vaccine induced immunity can be defined by the percentage of a recipients which are protected, the projected duration of the protection, and the degree of the protection. So number of the people who are being protected, what is the duration of the protection, and how much they are being protected. If, okay, for example, like we talk in case of a coronavirus, vaccines which were developed. So people in the second wave, they were affected a lot by the vaccination, but those people who already had one or two shot of this vaccination, especially the senior citizens, they were infected by this particular pathogen, but the impact was low, the symptoms were less, and they did not require the hospitalization. So that means the degree of protection, this shows the degree of protection of that vaccines, that yes, infection can take place, but it will not be very severe, right? So most viral vaccines, they considered effective, protect more than 90% of the recipients, and the immunity produced appears to be fairly durable, lasting several years or more. See, in the childhood, we get a lot of vaccines, and we get a booster doses also. So those vaccines and booster doses are such way that they give us a usually lifelong immunity. And for some cases, for example, oral polio vaccines or vaccines, a lot of booster doses and a lot of doses were required at the later stage also, till maybe under the year of 5 children, they get a lot of doses. So how we prepare a particular vaccines, and what are the procedures for preparing a particular vaccines also, they could its efficacy or its the duration of the protection could depend upon that. Then vaccines usually do not use immunologic response entirely comparable to that of a natural disease. So when some person is naturally infected by a particular disease or viral disease, so the kind of a immune response their body generate, and they get a lifelong immunity that particular disease. So that response is not being seen by the vaccination, definitely. So immunity to viral diseases should not be thought as an absolute. So it always happens that viruses, the problem with viruses is that every now and then we get a new strain of the viruses, they keep changing, right? So vaccine which is being already developed for one strain will not work that effectively against maybe the second strain, and depending it again depend upon how much changes in the genetic or in a genome of that virus is being noticed, right? If there are only minor changes, then definitely the vaccine is going to work there. But if there's a large number of changes at maybe a lot of mutations are being reported, then definitely that vaccines will not be as effective, right? Person immune to the natural infection as well as vaccines sometimes experience subclinical reinfection. So these are the cases that sometimes reinfection can take place even if you are vaccinated, or even if you were naturally infected by a particular pathogen, but it is not that you are lifelong immune to that particular pathogen. Those reinfection can always take place. So immune responses to viral vaccines can be further influenced by a number of factors, which could be, the vaccine related or host related. So the magnitude and duration of immunity differs significantly between live and the killed vaccine. And these days we are going more for the transgenic approach or a recombinant DNA technology approaches for the generation of a vaccine. Immune responses to vaccines can be enhanced by adding adjuvant substances. So, if the, for example, these are required when we are using maybe some part of the pathogen, not the whole, or we are using a recombinant DNA technology to synthesize some kind of a transcripts, and then using those for the development of a vaccine. So there we might need to use some adjuvant substances such as aluminum salts, so they can increase, they are added to enhance the immune response. For example, it has been done in hepatitis B vaccines. The route of administration of a vaccine can also influence the immunogenicity of some vaccines. See, we have oral vaccines also, we have a subcutaneous vaccines also, so that those routes can also influence the immunogenicity of some of the vaccine. Then there is a passive this prophylaxis. So the passive immunoprophylaxis means administration of exogenously produced antibodies to prevent infections in a exposed individuals, right? So the use of immunoglobulin preparations, they remains a mainstay of a passive prophylaxis of a viral illnesses, right? So this is usually recommended when exposure has already taken place or it is expected to occur very soon, and time does not allow for vaccination and the development of adequate post-vaccination immune responses. So disease has already taken place or it's going to take place within a certain period of time. So when no other effective vaccine is available, so when underlying illness preludes a satisfactory response to the vaccine, for example, tetanus. So आप लोग कहीं पे रोड पे गिर जाते हो, your hand is cut or you get some kind of a wound. So the doctors always say there are chances that tetanus will take place, right? So in those cases, doctors usually recommend that you should go for a tetanus vaccine, right? So it is you're already exposed to a pathogen. After that, what's with this network today? Yeah, I'm audible now.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. अब मुझे बताओ रेबीज की वैक्सीन कब मिलती है, कैसे मिलती है, बताओ जरा। कैन एनी किसी का है एक्सपीरियंस रेबीज वैक्सीन का?
Ma'am, when a dog bites,
यस युवराज। हाँ, डॉग बाइट्स हो जाती हैं या एनिमल बाइट, इवन कैट स्क्रैच हो जाता है, कुछ भी हो, इन दैट केस डॉक्टर्स रिकमेंड दैट यू शुड टेक अ रेबीज वैक्सीन. So after you have been bitten by a particular dog, because this virus is basically, it comes from the dog's bite, and there are chances that we might develop a rabies at the end. So a vaccination schedule is recommended by the doctor. Maybe 4 or 5 vaccines are there, and we are easily prevented. We can easily save ourselves from the rabies virus or hepatitis, in case of a hepatitis also, right? Then other management, as I told you, sanitation and vector control. So several other approaches to virus control also are very important, even though they are less dramatic than the vaccination. So it's not that always vaccination can only help. Like for a dengue virus, we don't have any effective vaccines available, so we still go for a sanitation and a vector control. A lot of emphasis is being laid by the health workers and the government on the vector control and the sanitation practices. So one approach is the avoidance of a viral exposure. This is effective means of preventing transmission of in HIV viruses also, which is spread spread through a sexual contact and exposure to blood of infected individuals. So making people aware about that how disease is being spread between individuals, we can avoid the viral exposure. So that can be done by educating people. Control of non-human viral reservoirs is another approach which can be followed. Unfortunately, very few opportunities exist for a practical applications. The most notable success was the control and in some cases the elimination of a rabies in some country through removal of a stray dog. So because as vaccinated dog or house dogs, they are all pets, they are vaccinated, so we don't have any danger of getting rabies from them. So usually the danger is through the stray dog. If they can be controlled, then definitely this disease could be eradicated. But this is not near to possible anywhere in India. We see stray dogs everywhere, and there are a lot of dog rights and human right people who dog right people, they'll come and they will not let you do so, right? Another approach is of enormous contemporary and historic importance is a vector control. So see, controlling a vector population is also not a very easy task, but we can reduce the population of the vector in a particular area. We can just close those breeding areas where these mosquitoes breed, like in open waters or collected waters in a pots or in a cooler. So if we can do that bit, so definitely breeding of the mosquito will be reduced, and the diseases which are spread by those vectors will also be managed. So transmission of a viral disease by bite of arthropod vector was first demonstrated by Walter Reed and his associates, and they found that yellow fever was transmitted by the mosquitoes. So as the turn of the century, yellow fever was a disease of a major consequence in Americas and Africa at that time. So, but then immediately applying Reed's discovery, there was some people, they mounted the anti-Aedes aegypti, anti-mosquito campaign in Havana that marked the beginning of a conquest of an epidemic yellow fever. So in dealing with the arthropod-borne disease such as St. Louis encephalitis, any procedure that reduces the vector population or limits the access of the arthropod to the humans has a potential values, right? So putting some oils or some kind of emulsions in the water coolers or other places, so that will also kill the larvae of the mosquito. They'll not able to breed there, or they'll kill the larvae, or other methods that can be used, right? So this procedures include draining the swamps, applying insecticides, screening homes, and using insect repellent or a protective clothing. So that is why these days you hear a lot that wear full clothes, use insect repellent, especially the children, if you're going out, in order to prevent the bite of the mosquito. So the last of the older approaches is to improve the sanitation. So in these approaches, we don't need much to do. It is just the basic rules or a basic it's called a basic, what should I say, I mean, basic approaches of a cleanliness should be followed, right? The method is applicable in a limited way to disease whose epidemiology involve fecal oral transmission. So the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was also one reason for these, that such diseases can be prevented, fecal borne diseases can be prevented if they are the washrooms or their toilets being in every household, right? So the well-known link between the discharge of raw sewage into the tidal waters and contamination of a shellfish and type A hepatitis is an example of a situation which is readily reversed by improved sanitary practices, right? So sewage water is going into the waters which contaminate the shellfish, and those fishes are consumed by the people, that leads to the hepatitis A. So these kind of situations can be improved if good sanitation practices are being followed, right? So sanitation and vector control are also very important. Vector-borne diseases such as dengue, malaria, chikungunya can be managed in a similar way by controlling the vector of the disease. So Delhi NCR के लोग तो ये diseases के बारे में अच्छे से जानते होंगे. I'm sure every now and then we get dengue. There's a lot of malaria cases, and there's a chikungunya fever also due to this particular virus is also, which is very common in Delhi NCR region. So these diseases are still manageable and controllable to some extent by managing the vector. If we can do that, right, it can be easily done that. Then there is an antiviral chemotherapy. So antiviral chemotherapy agents are again, they are further divided into three categories. There's a virucidal agents, they are antiviral agents, and they are immunomodulators. So what are virucidal agents? They directly inactivate the intact virus particles, right? Then although some of these agents, they have a clinical usefulness, such as topical treatment of a warts with certain podophyllin or certain ointments which destroy both virus and a host tissue. Most virucides, they do not they have no demonstrated therapeutic value, so they are not much available, or they are not very commonly used, right? Then antiviral agents, they inhibit viral replication at the cellular level. So we have many antivirals which are being identified, which are being used in the uh, treatment of many viral diseases. So antiviral agents, they inhibit viral replication at the cellular level by interrupting one or more steps in the life cycle of the viruses. So virus is not able to multiply, right? So these agents, they have a limited spectrum of activity, and because most of them also interrupt the host cell function, they can interrupt the host cell function also. So their too much use can be toxic to the humans to a various degrees, right? So in how much amount they are to be recommended, that is again a point of a concern. The emergence of a drug resistant viruses, like we have a drug resistance bacteria, we have a drug resistant viruses also. So the emergence of a drug resistant viruses may occur during clinical use of that further limits the effectiveness of a various antivirals. So this was the major problem which was being faced in the management of a HIV therapy, HIV, while managing HIV by using antivirals, right? Then immunomodulators such as interferons that alter the host immune responses to infection could in principle be protective, and the work on the interferons is still being going on. So these interferons, these are a group of signaling proteins, which made and released by the host cell in response to the viruses. So interferons are the signaling protein which are released by the host cell in response to the presence of the viruses. So in a typical scenario, a virus infected cell will release interferons which cause the nearby cells to heighten their antiviral defenses, right? So interferons, they belong to the large class of a protein known as a cytokines. आपने कभी cytokine storm सुना एक word? During coronavirus infection, there was a term called cytokine storm. सुना किसी ने क्या?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Yes, ma'am. हाँ, क्या होता है बताओ मुझे फिर?
Ma'am, so basically it happens in a super infection with something called a super antigen. So when it binds to the MHC complex, instead of undergoing normal antigen processing, there's some kind of error which takes place, and because of that, the T cells release extreme amounts of cytokines, and there's so much that it has very very bad effects on the body. So because of that, it's called a cytokine storm.
Yeah, this was reported in case of a COVID-19 also, that it could be due to the cytokine storm also, that people are dying in the later stages, right? Okay, so you know that, right? Good. So interferons are the chemicals. So interferons इसके बाद है, बीच में एक slide और है. So a number of antiviral agents with demonstrated effectiveness are now available. So these antiviral agents, they improve the clinical course of a disease, but they have a certain kind of a limitations as a therapeutics for chronic or latent infections. For example, the 4 nucleoside analog drugs are now available for the therapy of HIV, and they do not prevent the ultimate worsening of disease. So earlier, when HIV disease was in early in 90s or before that, when this disease was identified, this disease killed many people, right? Because it make people the weakened immune response, their immune system get weakened, and they don't die of HIV, they die of the other diseases which they contract while during the course of this disease. But after that, a number of antivirals were available within a period of a time. They were identified. So which uh, they did not manage the disease totally, but they improved the disease burden in the human population. That they were able to live a particular age, normal life by taking these kind of medicines, right? So it prevent the worsening of the disease very early. Like pehle kya hota tha, people they get infected by HIV within a certain period of a time. I mean, they'll contract other diseases also, and they'll die very soon, right? There were many factors along other than the therapeutic factors that we were not having good therapeutics. But then, yes, as and when the new therapeutics or new antivirals were involved, were being identified, so the that gap was reduced basically. जो लोगों की death जल्दी हो जाती थी due to this disease, that was I mean that gap was actually increased, not reduced, increased, that they were able to live to a certain year with this disease, but having those antivirals or with those treatment, a life was little better, or disease burden थोड़ा सा कम हुआ था उसकी वजह से, right? Mortality was reduced actually, right? So for the concept of targeted approach is now practiced, since information concerning the structure and replication of viruses, we know a lot of things, right? We know how they multiply, how they replicate, the playing roles in this. So all those information are identification of therapeutic agents was easy. So such data may be useful in identifying specific target sites for the antiviral agents. So interferons are the cytokines with antiviral activity. So mid 1930s, they scientists, they have recognized that under certain circumstances one virus can interfere with another virus. So in 1957, there was this Isaac and then his co-worker, they made a dramatic discovery that explained the mechanism of a resistance, right? They found that the virus infected cells can elaborate a protein substance called interferon, which when added to normal cells in the culture, they protect them from the viral infection. So other microbial agents such as Rickettsian bacteria and natural and synthetic polypeptides were then later shown to induce the interferon. So there are usually three types of interferons: alpha, beta, and gamma. So interferon alpha is produced by the leukocytes, beta is produced by the fibroblast, and interferon gamma is produced by the activated lymphocytes. So interferons are inhibitory to the numerous viruses. So a lot of work is still going on this. So for many years, it was not possible to obtain sufficient quantity of interferons to conduct major studies. But when the recombinant DNA technology and cell culture technology, it led to the production of an adequate supply of interferons, and subsequent conduct of the extensive trials was being done in this particular field also. Although broadly antiviral, in some animal models, interferon alpha has proven effective in a limited number of viral illness to the humans, especially in chronic hepatitis B and C. In addition, these interferons have been identified or they are found effective in treatment of other diseases. For example, interferon alpha is effective for hairy cell leukemia and AIDS-related Kaposi sarcoma. So this sarcoma is a form of a cancer which developed from a cell that line lymph or a blood cells in a selected group of an individual. So this has been used there. Then interferon beta multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is again a disease of the brain and the spinal cord, and in this the immune system, they attacks the protective sheath myelin of the brain. So interferon gamma, so in this case the interferon beta has been used. Then interferon gamma is used for reducing the frequency and severity of a serious infections which are associated with chronic granulomatous disease. So this disease causes malfunction of the immune system. So identifying new effective therapeutics is still there. I mean, we are still looking for much better therapeutics if we can go for a virus disease, especially. So the improved basic science knowledge for base of viruses combined with the urgent need for improved therapeutics, especially for HIV, has given a considerable impetus to the search of a new approaches, because this was one disease where a lot of deaths were reported, and we were not having we cannot have the vaccination for this particular disease. We were still not sure what to do, because it was kind of a disease which reduces the immune response of a person, right? So people were working, a lot of scientists, they worked a lot in the area to how they can actually help in the management or maybe reducing the impact of this particular virus. How can they can improve the general health of a people, right? Then combination therapy, the use of multiple drugs with different mechanism of action is also being studied as a method of improving clinical effectiveness. So such combinations can offer advantages over monodrug therapy, such as improved antiviral activity, then also preventing or delaying the development of a drug resistance, because drug resistance in viruses is also a problem, that after using continuously one antiviral for a longer time, they could develop a drug resistance to that particular drug. So if we use a multiple drugs or a cocktail of a drug, which is being done in case of a HIV, so that can be managed to a certain extent. So combination of various antiviral drugs has been extensively studied for HIV. In addition, approaches investigated for HIV, they have included combining cytokine with one or more antiviral agents. So combination therapy has been effective in treatment of a diseases, other infectious agents also, Mycobacterium tuberculosis or the Pseudomonas. So not in viruses, but in bacterial pathogens also. Then discovering new drugs. So new drugs with a novel mechanism of actions are always being looked upon, and people are still working for this. So some of these have displayed considerable antiviral activity in human clinical trials. For example, protease inhibitors, they have tried to use for HIV-1 infection. So new drug or looking forward for a new drug or developing a new drug is always there. They are also, apart from the allopathy field, people are going towards the medicinal plants also, the exploiting various metabolites which are being generated by the medicinal plant for the management of the diseases. So that approach is also being followed, right? Then evaluating available drugs for the new indications. Interleukin 2, a cytokine which is currently approved for treating renal cell carcinoma, has shown considerable immunomodulatory activity in some HIV-1 infected patients also. So they're trying to see whether the drugs which are already available can be used for any other purposes or any other disease also or not, right? So a continuous hunt for discovering new vaccines or a new therapeutics for the virus diseases is still going on. For example, in COVID-19 also, some of the antivirals were being used. Those antivirals which were being used to treat the hepatitis or other kind of a pathogens. This was initially done, a combination of a therapy was used, because we were not having any single therapy therapeutics which are available, which could be we can use against the coronavirus, since this was the new pathogen or a new strain which was impacting human population. So we were not having anything for the management. So combination of the therapy, a lot of steroids were being recommended, antivirals were being given in the form of injections. So a lot of things were going on, which later showed some studies that there was an adverse effect on the people also, because it led to some other kind of a problem later. But then a combination of a therapy or using a treatment which could be maybe earlier being used for some other pathogen or a viral pathogen can sometime lead to the management or reducing the impact of a particular viral disease in the humans also, right? So this was about the management of a human diseases. So the more stress we still have on the vaccination, the more we are still dependent upon the vaccination for the management of the viral diseases. But as we discuss later, that sanitation and the vector control can be the second point. And then now therapeutics and newer approaches such as interferons, how we can exploit these in the management, this is still going on, right? So hunt for the new vaccines or a new medicines or a new therapeutics is still there. We always keep looking for a new drugs. Identification of the drugs which can be used for the management of the pathogen is still going on. But then we need to see, and then combination therapy, that combination of 2 or 3 drugs together, if they can reduce the infection or they can manage the pathogen to some extent, right? So this was all about the management of human pathogen and how it can be done. If there's any question, please ask your questions. So in
Ma'am,
some
could,
of, yes,
sorry. No, ma'am, continue.
yeah, please
Sorry.
go. No,
Uh,
you say it's bolo.
Ma'am, could passive prophylaxis be used to treat COVID?
Uh, see, in COVID, yeah, some antivirals were being used, some drugs were being used, which were being used for hepatitis C virus or some hepatitis virus, I remember. So they were tried, but they were not very effective, right? So in COVID, lot of new, what should I say, that lot of trials were being done by the lot of healthcare workers, like a lot of steroids, and which caused a negative impact. Then a lot of some antivirals also, the remdesivir and all other things, those were antiviral drugs basically, right? So they were being used, but later when when a study came, it showed that they did not worked very well, or I mean, they was not actually required, or they were just, at one point it became like kind of a, a racket where the those drugs were black marketed, or some those kind of a thing came up later, that they were not actually very useful there, but then it was being exploited just as that they can be used for the treatment and some hoax kind of a messages, and then they were also recommended by in some hospitals, yes, but then later I feel it was more of exploiting people for their money, not, they were not useful in any way.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. Just try to read more about these things. I'm not vaccines. I'm sure in immunology you're studying, so not much. I'm not. I've just given the introduction only. What is active and passive immunity? What is killed and live vaccine? So ये सब चीजें I'm sure आपको पता होगी. Just try to read some articles, or okay, we'll in one discussion chapter or in one discussion lecture like we have on Friday, we'll try to take up this topic also, that what could be the possible management practices and how we can effectively look for the other techniques for the management of the pathogen, or what other ways are available where we can exploit or we can explore for the management of the viruses, right? Okay, that's all for today's lecture. Then we can go for attendance. Adish Mishra. Adish, are you there? Athoiba?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Ayushi?
Present, ma'am.
Okay, sorry for that. Okay, Ayushi, Ishita तो मुझे दिख रही है. Sam and Devanshi,
Present, ma'am.
Kshitij, Manaswani. Yes, Manaswani is there. Kshitij is there. Namrita, Nandini, Nehal, Devanshi is there. I saw you. Yeah. Okay. Rupal, Sahiba,
Present, ma'am.
Sanjana,
Present, ma'am.
Shakti, Shivani.
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Yes, yeah, Shivani, I saw you. Shakti, yes. And then Tanvi, Tridev, Vanshika,
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Vivek, Yukta, Yuvraj.
Present, ma'am.
Who's one student is absent there, right?
Present,
Two
ma'am.
absent. Yeah, Yuvraj, Vivek, I saw you. Vanshika, Tridev. Okay, I'll download the attendance. No worries. Okay, students, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.